Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the DFO DFS show for Wednesday, April the 14th. Hope everyone's having a good Wednesday. Last night, obviously not our best night of the year for sure, but hockey is a volatile game when it comes to DFS. So some of those nights are going to happen. Definitely hit some of the prime spots, but missed on a couple as well. Washington looked really, really good last night. Anthony Mantha, pretty solid debut. Other than that, not a horrible night, but looking obviously for a little bit better things tonight. We got a 5-game slate on our hands. There's 6 games in total today, one of which just wrapped up at 2 o'clock, or started at 2, I should say. But yeah, 5 games on the main slate for Draftkings tonight. Before we get into things, just want to mention, if you guys have any questions or comments throughout the show, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then everything you see in the Google Sheets today can be available to you if you join DFO Premium, which you can do for as little as $9.99 for the week. And thank you very much to our friends at Jock Market for sponsoring the show today. They are basically DFS meets a stock exchange. And if you are an American viewing the show today, you can definitely check them out and join Jock Market today. Use promo code DFO20 to get started. So 5-game slate. We'll start with the goalies, like we always do. Montreal will host the Calgary Flames here in the first game. Jake Allen confirmed for the Canadiens. Unclear who starts for the Flames. This is a massive game for Calgary, right? I mean, they're, I believe, 4 points back of Montreal in the playoff hunt. Montreal does have games in hand, so it's still seemingly unlikely that the Flames will catch them. But they're still going to try to win games. On the trade deadline, they made it abundantly clear that they're still here to play hockey games, and that's why they didn't really sell the farm. They made some small moves, moved out some kind of their periphery pieces. But so all that being said, I expect Markstrom to go on a back-to-back tonight. They need a win tonight. They've got like Louis Domingue there, I believe. Maybe they turn to him. I doubt it. So I expect Markstrom to start on the back-to-back, but again, unconfirmed. Obviously, that's going to be confirmed in warm-ups, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Matt Murray returns to the crease for the Senators tonight. He will be countered by Laurent Brossoit for the Jets. Connor Hellebuck starts tomorrow against the Maple Leafs. So Brossoit tonight in Ottawa. St. Louis hosts the Avalanche in an early start there, 7:30 in St. Louis. So a bit of an early start. So no, the Avalanche though, again, they canceled the morning skate again today. Somebody's dealing with COVID again. Unclear who it is, so hopefully, we aren't, hey, build around Colorado one, and then Nathan McKinnon or Mikko Rantanen, one of them has COVID. So that's going to have to kind of be ironed out. I expect that information to probably come out while I'm live here. Hopefully that isn't the case, but I would not be surprised, that's for sure. So yeah, be prepared for that. But that game, like I said, starts early enough where we can make any adjustments that we need to if it is a big name that is scratched. But no goalie confirmed in that spot. Jordan Binnington, Philip Grubauer are projected to start. The Kings will host the Golden Knights. Jonathan Quick expected to go head-to-head with Marc-Andre Fleury, but again, unconfirmed, so going to have to wait for warm-ups for those ones as well. And then the nightcaps in San Jose, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Josef Korenar makes his first career NHL start. Anthony Stolarz will get his second start in a row after posting a ridiculous 46 save shutout the other night. So yeah, let's get right into it. I believe I actually messed up the order here on my Google Sheet. So I think, yeah, we're going to start with Ottawa and Winnipeg first. And then we will go back to Montreal and Calgary. So in this Ottawa-Winnipeg game, obviously Winnipeg did not look very good the other night against these Senators. Senators looked solid on Monday. It looks like that's going to be the case again. On Monday, Ottawa won, graded out very, very well. They might have actually been the highest rated line, in terms of 5v5 score. They had a pretty good night. Kachuk had 2 goals, and they look good against tonight. 5.37 5v5 score. Winnipeg 1 looks solid. Winnipeg 2 slightly above average. So from a matchups point of view, it's going to be Ottawa 1 basically against the middle 6 of the Jets. Ottawa 2 will see the top 6 of the Jets, and then Ottawa 3 will see quite a bit of the Scheifele line. Not quite a hard match, but still enough to take notice. So we'll start up top. Ottawa 1, they graded out the best. So they will face the majority of the time will be up against, 67% of the time will be up against the Winnipeg middle 6, which is, a pretty good matchup going up against Winnipeg 2 so far this season. Has been, not very good defensively. One of the worst defensive lines on this slate. Winnipeg 3 looks much better with Matthew Perreault, at least defensively. They look much better defensively with Matthew Perreault on the left side as opposed to Andrew Kopp. They don't have the same offensive pop. But yeah, Perreault seems to really stabilize that line defensively, so it's a bit of a tougher matchup for Ottawa one in this game, but it's the exact same matchup that they had to deal with the other night, and they had a pretty solid game overall. Like their underlying numbers weren't great in that game, so the chances of them repeating it aren't exactly great. But on a small slate, I do still like them a little bit. So the matchup, like I said, 36% of their ice time is going to be coming against that Pierre-Luc Dubois line, which has struggled defensively. So that looks like a pretty solid matchup there. On the other side, the Jets top line, about 70% of their ice time will come against the middle six of the Senators, which is very similar in terms of the matchup. One line's pretty good defensively, the other line not so much. It's not a crazy good matchup. And Winnipeg one hasn't exactly been outstanding this season, but I do still like them quite a bit tonight, especially Kyle Connor. If as a one-off play, Kyle Connor's shot volume is amazing. He scores pretty much every game. Like, he's just one of the most underrated players in the world. Like, nobody talks about this guy, and he's spectacular. So I like Kyle Connor a lot tonight. And I would definitely still pair him with Mark Scheifele. They play together on the power play. They're the focal points of that entire offense. So I do still like them. The matchup isn't necessarily great. It's not terrible either, though. Ottawa 3 slightly below average defensively. Ottawa 2 just slightly above average. So it's not a bad matchup. I'll still have my fair share of Winnipeg 1 tonight. Winnipeg 2, they had the best game of the group for the Jets the other night in terms of underlying numbers. They still look okay tonight. As I mentioned, they're going to be seeing the top 6 of the Senators, and that looks like a little bit of maybe a little bit of a better matchup. Pretty much the exact same matchup though as the top line we'll see. So. It's a matter of preference there. To me, I like Winnipeg 1 a little bit more tonight just because of the power play exposure you're going to get. In terms of the power play score, Winnipeg's got a pretty good power play score. Third best of the night. Their power play is pretty good. Second best power play overall in the slate. The Senators do not have a very good penalty kill. So the Jets power play looks solid tonight. It's Grubauer that's out for Colorado. I knew we would get that information. So that changes things for sure. Could see most likely against Jonas Johansson, I would imagine, unless Devin Dubnyk's ready to go. But Philip Grubauer added the COVID list. Great. I'll retweet that at least. So that definitely changes things for the slate in terms of goaltenders, if nothing else. But I don't know how much it changes things. I mean, Johansson's been pretty solid, and Colorado is just so good defensively that it's hard to target them, whoever they're playing, regardless. So, yeah, back to the Jets. I like them from a power play point of view tonight. So for me, that's Winnipeg 1 as opposed to Winnipeg 2. As for the rest of the Senators, none of these lines really jump off the page offensively. Nothing really that great. I think it's just the top line that you're going to want to target from the Senators. It works nicely for them, too, because they're pretty cheap, right? I mean, Norris just 4,100, Batherson just 3,900, super cheap. You can fit them in with pretty much anybody. And then if you don't want to full stack them, Brady Tkachuk as a one-off play looks really, really solid. Maybe you want to just go Brady Tkachuk and Thomas Chabot. Chabot's been fantastic as of late as well. So maybe it's just a Tkachuk, Chabot mini stack. I don't know if that's right you want to go. If you want to full stack them, though, they look pretty solid and it's super cheap. You can basically play them with anybody. So that's as far as I'll really go with the Senators tonight. They're still pretty unreliable, and I do have a little bit of interest in Laurent Brossoit. My dog is going nuts, so I apologize for that. All right, back up to this Montreal and Calgary game. So in this game, Montreal 1 looks like the best option, but all the lines in this game kind of look below average. Montreal 1, again, always pretty solid offensive or underlying numbers, but it's very difficult. They have a hard time scoring. If you've watched the show a lot, you know that they always grade out pretty well. They have a difficult time scoring. Matchups in this game, it's going to be Montreal 1 going head-to-head with the Lindholm, Tkachuk, and Gaudreau line. Montreal 2 will basically just see everybody except for a mix of the top 9 of the Flames. The third line will go head-to-head with the Monahan line. So a little bit easier game to break down. Montreal 1 against Calgary 1. As I mentioned, Montreal 1 really, really good offensively, at least in generating. But what really just sticks out is their defensive play, outstanding, even without Brendan Gallagher, probably even a little bit better with Paul Byron. So that kind of just, for me, takes Calgary 1 out of the equation. They haven't been all that great all season long anyway. So that takes them out of the equation a little bit for me. Calgary 2 will go primarily up against The third line, the Kotkaniemi line for the Canadiens, who is their weakest defensive line. They're not bad. They're slightly below average, but they're still solid. So it's not a great matchup, but if you do want to play the Flames tonight, it is a back-to-back, so it makes it a little bit less appealing for sure. But if you do want to play the Flames tonight, it does look like that second line is probably the way you want to go. Maybe it's Monahan and Mangiapane. In terms of the price, they are very cheap. Mangiapane, $3,400. Monahan, $4,400. Dylan Dubé, $3,000. If you want to leave Dubé off, I'm fine with that. Mangiapane, Monahan makes a little bit of sense to me. So they're just very cheap, right? I mean, for their skill level, that's pretty cheap. They obviously haven't been great this year, but especially Monahan's been disappointing. But, in a really at that low of a salary, I think they're worth a flyer tonight in a decent matchup. As good of a matchup, I guess, as you'll find for the Flames is the way to look at it. On the other side, Montreal did shake up their lines a little bit tonight. Oops. That's not the button I wanted to press. So Joel Armia is back in the lineup for the Montreal Canadiens. He will go on to this. Jeez Louise. He will go on the second line with Nick Suzuki and Tyler Toffoli, which changes things a little bit here. Gio seems like he's been picking it up. Would you go there tonight in that price range? Let me look up Gio. Probably not. I just don't think it's a great matchup for them. They don't score. They don't give up enough goals. Like, as we talked about every time I talk about the Canadiens, if they stay out of penalty trouble, they're not going to give up any goals. They're one of the best defensive 5v5 teams in hockey. They get into penalty trouble, their penalty kill absolutely sucks. So to me, I think there's much safer options at the top tonight. Like, when you're talking about defensemen, it's tough to pay $5,700 for Giordano. I'd rather play Thomas Chabot at $5,400. I'd probably, even in the same game, probably rather play Shea Weber at $5,300. And then if you go up a little bit, Cale Makar $6,000, Theodore $6,100, Brent Burns 64, and Pietrangelo 64. I think I would just rather all those guys than Mark Giordano tonight. I know he's been playing better. I just am not necessarily in love with the Flames tonight on a back-to-back on the road, and then obviously against a tough Montreal team. But as I mentioned, Montreal's power play or penalty kill is not good. So Calgary still has one of the second biggest power play advantage on the slate, even though their power play isn't very good. The Canadiens' penalty kill is just that bad. So if Montreal gets in penalty trouble tonight, then yeah, Calgary is going to be a strong play. But it's hard to bank on that with very limited 5v5 production. It's not even like the Flames are that good at 5v5 themselves offensively. It's going to be tough sledding for them, especially in a back-to-back set. So yeah, I do have a little bit of interest, I think, here in this second line, the Suzuki Toffoli Armia line. Again, as I mentioned, their matchup is basically going to be just against the top nine of the Flames. Flames pretty solid defensively under Daryl Sutter. This new look, pretty solid. So again, the matchup is not great for Montreal tonight either. It looks like it should be a low-scoring game. Both teams very solid defensively at 5v5. The numbers, again, not outstanding from Montreal too, but I just like the fact that you get Suzuki and Toffoli together. Toffoli to $6,900. Suzuki's been playing much better of late. He's just $4,800. But then you get Joel Armia at just minimum price $2,500. So very cheap to play Montreal 2 tonight. So I do like them a little bit. I specifically like Armia. I mean, the amount of minutes that he should get. Obviously, coming back from COVID, it's not always necessarily the greatest thing. He could be feeling the effects a little bit still. Might not be quite up to speed, but at minimum price, he's a guy that's always had pretty reliable shot volume, and then that usage in the lineup should provide him with plenty of opportunities to at least provide a stable floor at the minimum price. So I do like Joel Armia at a little bit tonight. If you want to one-off him, maybe as like just a value option, then that's totally fine with me. And then if you want a full stack, I think they look okay as well. But overall, this game looks kind of boring. Should be pretty low scoring. As long as the goaltenders play well, obviously. All right, so St. Louis and Colorado, obviously now with Philip Grubauer out, changes things a little bit, but I don't think it changes things too much because, as I mentioned, Colorado is so good defensively. It's going to be tough for the Blues to get anything going, regardless of who starts in net for the Avalanche. Petrie or Weber with Montreal 2. I would go with Weber just because obviously you got Suzuki, Toffoli, and Weber on the top power play unit. So that's the way I would go. I prefer Weber over Petrie. I haven't been very good at picking between those two this year. I've went with Weber almost exclusively. We've seen quite a fall off from Jeff Petrie as well ever since Ben Sherratt got hurt. So I don't know how much correlation there is there, but it seems to be correlated pretty well. Sherratt went out, Petrie's cooled right down. So, his price range is still way up there as if he's like just firing on all cylinders. Weber makes more sense to me on that top power play unit. So yeah, Colorado 1 obviously looks outstanding. Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen, super expensive though, 24,600. They grade it as the best line on the slate for obvious reasons. Colorado 2 looks solid as well. They look solid on Monday too. It seems whichever line. So this is where I'm a little nervous tonight. It seems to be whatever line Valeri Nichushkin is on is the line that has the solid underlying numbers. When he's with Colorado 3, their numbers are unbelievable, some of the best in the league. When he's with Colorado 2, their numbers are suddenly outstanding. So I played quite a bit of Colorado 2 on Monday. Huge disappointment. But what my main concern is that how long these lines last. Do they even go into this game with these lines? I'm not sure. I think there's a pretty good chance that Nichushkin drops back down and they just go back to what they normally do. Sad back up with Kadri. So I'm hesitant to build a lot of lineups with Colorado 2 or Colorado 3. To me, if you are building it, maybe you're just playing like a showdown slate or whatever with this game. I don't even know if they're offering that. I'm just trying to give you ideas. I would wait to figure out what the lines are going to look like in warmups, which again I will have on Twitter at Daily Faceoff at 7 p.m. Eastern, and just play whichever line Nichushkin's on. That's going to become your value line. If he goes down to Colorado 3, then they become the value play. If he's up with Colorado 2, then they become the value play. In terms of the matchups, not really a whole lot going on here. Let me just go to it. So St. Louis, their middle six is pretty solid defensively. Their top line and their fourth line are the ones that kind of lack defensively. So you want to probably target the top line a little bit more. Whoever's going to play the most against top lines right now, which looks like the Kadri line, but it looks like a pretty even distribution. So no real matchups to really chase in this game. Obviously, the McKinnon line looks outstanding. They're going to see quite a bit of the O'Reilly line. You would imagine it's basically going to be O'Reilly and Shen all night. But it's not like O'Reilly and Shen have been, that outstanding. The O'Reilly line definitely a little bit better, but they're still, losing the puck possession battle just under 50%. So it's not a bad matchup. Colorado 1 looks like they're in a really good spot tonight. I do like them quite a bit. And then, yeah, whichever line Nichushkin plays on is the line I'm going to be targeting. If you're playing the St. Louis side of things, I think you basically just have to go with their top line. I just am not in love. Like, obviously, this bottom 9, I mean, those numbers are terrible. I think St. Louis 3 has the worst offensive numbers on the entire slate. The O'Reilly line really doesn't do a whole lot at 5v5. And then the top line is literally about as average as you can get. So, again, in a matchup with a really good Colorado team, it just doesn't look that appealing to play the Blues tonight. They will be under-owned, so if you want to maybe take a contrarian stab at St. Louis too, I think that's a fine option. Schwartz is 3,400, Shen 5,100, Tarasenko 6,100. They're super cheap, so if you want to go contrarian, if you're building a lot of lineups, I think that's fine. They're okay, but like I said, they're very vanilla. They're about as mediocre of a line as you can get, and the rest of the Blues lines are not very good offensively, so at least at 5v5. From a power play standpoint, Colorado, the best power play advantage on the entire slate. They draw a ton of penalties. The Blues are not very disciplined. The Avalanche, the best power play on the slate. The Blues have the third worst penalty kill on the entire slate. So it looks like a huge advantage here for the Avalanche, as you can see here by their power play score. It's massive in comparison to the rest of these lines. So they look very, very, very good tonight. Obviously, you get Colorado 1 altogether on the top power play unit with Makar and Donskoy. If you want to maybe get different, because they're going to be chalky, if you want to get different, throwing Donskoy into the mix is a decent idea. Obviously, I like Donskoy a little bit more at 5v5, and Nichushkin drops down, as I mentioned previously. And then for the St. Louis, again, the power play doesn't look very good. They're below. The power play itself is below average. And then the Avalanche have the second best penalty kill in the entire slate. So not a whole lot to like here about the Avalanche, even with the Grubauer news. Johansson's played pretty well for them. I can't believe I'm saying that. Dubnyk, he's been solid everywhere he's been. Obviously, he struggled a little bit in San Jose, struggled last year too, but I'm not too worried playing behind a team that is as stout defensively as the Avalanche are. All right. LA and the Golden Knights. Is Brown going to score for a 9th straight game? I'm never big on that top line. As I mentioned, like you got like the Tarasenko line, like they're about as boring as they come vanilla, like as mediocre as middle of the road. And the same can be said about LA1. I mean, offensively at 5v5, they just don't get a whole lot going. But this game is very easy to break down. LA makes things easy on us. Basically, hard match. LA won. It's going to be the Kopitar line head-to-head with the Pacioretty line. It's going to be the second line up against the Carlson-Marchessault line, third line against third line, fourth line against fourth line. So very easy to break down from a matchup standpoint. So as I mentioned, slightly above average for LA1 offensively, and then pretty good defensively. So that takes a little bit of the fun out of it. If you want to play Vegas 1, they're in a tough matchup with the Kopitar line. So I don't love Vegas 1 tonight. Vegas 2 is one that I go to very often. They've got a pretty decent matchup. I mean, LA2 is slightly below average defensively. They're not like the worst, but this number obviously stands out. They 44.2% Corsi 4 is terrible. Connor Brown. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't imagine Connor Brown scores 9 straight. I mean, he's been red hot. Like, I don't know how to evaluate what Connor Brown is doing right now. I mean, when they talk to DJ Smith, he's like, oh my God, he's going to the net more now. And that's why he's scoring. And maybe that's the case. But is Connor Brown going to score 9 straight? I mean, if I were a betting man, and I could put money down that Connor Brown is not going to score, I would. I just don't know how sustainable it is. The one good thing for Connor Brown is his usage is always really solid. I mean, even when he was on like their fourth line, now he's on their third line, however you want to look at it. He plays a ton. He plays a ton on the penalty kill. He is getting power play time. His shot volume, I think, is the one thing that stands out to me, is that he's shooting more. So obviously that makes his current goal scoring pace a little bit more sustainable. But overall, I mean, it's hard to be like, yes, Connor Brown is going to score 9 straight. I would imagine he doesn't. But he is one of the hottest players in the league. He's only 4,000. If you want to take a flyer on him and hope that it continues, then that's fine. But overall, it's he's just ridiculously hot. And like, it's not like he's this like elite shooter, right? Like where it's like, oh my God, he's just sniping every single night. It's not really the case. I just want to pull up here. What has he done here? So over those 8 games, he has 8 goals on 25 shots. He's shooting 32%. So no, he's not going to score 10. Connor Brown cannot maintain a 32% shooting percentage. Nobody can. So I'm going to go with no. But if you want to ride the hot hand at 4,000, it's fine. If we want to look at it for a second, their line at 5v5 is horrendous. So him and Chris Tierney get absolutely nothing going at 5v5. So he'd have to get lucky or maybe cash one in on PP2. But no, I would say no. But I mean, scored an 8 straight. He definitely could. So okay, Vegas 2 is a line that I've obviously touted quite a bit. They're really, really good. Across the board, they've been solid all season long. They're never expensive for whatever reason. So I like them again. As I mentioned, like this number stands out right here. 44.2% Corsi 4 for LA2 is terrible, especially going up against, some Corsi gods from VGK2, 57.7 Corsi 4. So there's a good chance that VGK2 hems them in the majority of the evening. And has a really good night. I do like them. But then if we take a look here at VGK3, I mentioned that they could be potentially becoming the new Colorado 3 for us. They've got a very nice matchup against LA3, another line that gets caved in pretty badly. 40% expected goals for percentage is horrendous. Has a little bit to do with their defense, more to do with the fact that they produce no offense whatsoever. But VGK3 looks solid as well. So, that's it. I'm projecting that Matthias Janmark's going to be there. If he is, I think that boosted a little bit. I mean, they had William Carrier there the other night. So that's a huge boost if they get Janmark over Carrier. To full stack them, it's 10,500. I don't know if you want a full stack. To me, Alex Tuch is obviously the most appealing on that line at 4,300. Really solid shot volume, really solid cash game option. Nosek, though, he's been hot. Maybe you can continue to ride that. He's been shooting a lot more. He's been playing a lot more. So VGK3 looks like a really good value option if you don't want to pay for Vegas 2 or Vegas 1 for that standpoint or for that point. I don't like VGK 1 just against Kopitar. I just think it makes more sense to play the other two because they're in better matchups and they're just as good. So So yeah, I think Vegas 2 is really good. I think they obviously have a higher ceiling than Vegas 3, but Vegas 3 seems to have a pretty decent floor for how cheap they are at 10,500. And Yanmark should provide a nice spark there. From the LA standpoint, as I mentioned, they just don't do a whole lot offensively, so it's hard to get too excited. Even the Kopitar line, obviously their best line, not a great matchup going up head to head with Pacioretty's line. So tough to say. It's pretty crazy here, but VGK 3, the best offensive numbers on the entire slate right now. No second tuck have been outstanding. And adding Yanmark to the mix should help. Vegas does to LA what Wash does to Philly, 4+ goals almost every time they play. Yeah, they seem to have their number. And then if Jonathan Quick gets the start tonight, it looks even better. Cal Peterson's definitely the two goalies there now. So if it's Quick tonight, I like Vegas even more. They seem to beat up on them pretty good. But then on the power play, slightly below average from the Golden Knights. The Kings just have a pretty good penalty kill. And then Vegas' power play is very mediocre right now. So, but they should do most of, they're going to do most of their damage at 5v5 anyways. And then anything they do on the power play is just kind of gravy at that point. Final game of the night, we've got the Ducks and the Sharks. So the Sharks, my beloved Sharks, they've changed up their lines. So Rudolph Balcers goes up to the top line with Logan Couture and Evander Kane. Kevin Labanc drops down with Meyer and Hurdle. So, before I got this news, San Jose 2 graded it as the best line in the entire slate, at least offensively. Not the case now, but they still all obviously look pretty solid. Vegas or San Jose 2 and San Jose 1 both grade out, almost identical. They normally hard match Logan Couture against the other team's top line, against basically every single team except for the Ducks for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because the Ducks don't have a very distinguished top line. I would say it is their Henrique line, but the coaching staff of the Sharks doesn't seem to think so. So basically, they're going to just see a mix of the top two lines, and then San Jose 2 is just going to kind of avoid the Henrique line. So the entire Ducks, they just suck. Their whole defensively, their whole team. So there's not really a bad matchup. Ideally, I think San Jose 2 probably has the best matchup just because they're going to avoid the Henrique line, which seems to be their best line. So San Jose 2 looks really good with Kevin Labanc there. However, Timo Meyer and Hurdle have pretty good numbers, right? Like these are their numbers on the season together without Rudolph Balcers. When Balcers was on that line, the numbers skyrocketed to 37 scoring chances for per 60. So he was bringing a lot to that line without question. So him moving up to that top line draws some interest from me. I think that could really push that line over the edge. He brings a little bit more in terms of the forecheck than Kevin Labanc does. And I think that I like San Jose 1 quite a bit tonight. But I'm not going to go completely away from San Jose 2 either, because obviously Kevin Labanc is very capable, more capable than Rudolph Balcers is at finishing. So I like both of them probably equally, but I am interested to see what Rudolph Balcers brings to that line. And then to full stack, they're both basically the same. So if you're building on multiple lineups, you can just interchange them. They're the same. They look very similar on paper. And then the only difference would be if you're playing San Jose 2, which is Hurdle and Meyer, you're gonna want to play Burns. If you're playing the top line, you're probably gonna want to play Karlsson. That's the only thing that's really going to change. That obviously is a big difference because Burns is 6,200, Karlsson is 4,800. So that changes things a little bit. Is this a good start for Coronar, the goalie, in his first start? Kind of. It's a good matchup. My issue with Coronar is his AHL numbers aren't great. I don't know much about him, if I'm being completely honest. Just 23 years old, but an 898 save percentage in the AHL, 891 in a full season last year, 905 in the Czech league. I don't know. He just doesn't look like he's going to be that good. I don't know much about him, so it's hard for me to say. Obviously, the Ducks present a pretty good matchup. The goalie score doesn't hate him. But I think my problem with him is that he's 7,700, right? It's hard to trust a guy who's got an 898 save percentage in the AHL in his first career start at 7,700. If he was Stolarz's price at 7,100, I'd be like, yeah, take a shot at him. But at 7,700, it's expensive. It's risky to play him. So I prefer Brissois against the Senators over Coronar probably tonight. But he looks okay. Like, I think he's probably your second best option. If you don't believe in the Sharks, I think Stellaris is fine. He obviously had a pretty good game, but I think I think the Sharks win this game. Vegas definitely agrees with me. We've got, basically 5 very clear favorites on tonight's slate. Vegas heavily favored, top favorites of the night. Colorado, number 2. Winnipeg, number 3. San Jose, number 4. Montreal, number 5. So 5 very clear favorites. So, Coronar and Brissois look okay at 7,700. I trust Brissois a little bit more. And his matchup is pretty solid as well. So VGK2 ranked number 2 line and Caps 2 rated number 3 second line. Will that change soon? Huh? I'm not sure I understand because the Caps don't play tonight. But yeah, so that's that. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the Ducks. They don't really get a whole lot going offensively at all. Even though Coronar's, maybe because Coronar is in, they scored tonight. I mean, obviously, if I'm saying Coronar is obviously not a very good AHL goalie, they should have their chances tonight. So I guess there should be some interest in the Ducks. I should talk about them. Whoever's going to see the most of this fourth line is who you're going to want to target, but they're not going to play very much. So, I think the top line is probably where I would go, which is Henrique, Silverberg, and on a blank, Heinen. They seem like they would probably be your best options. Maybe Raquel one-off. He's at 5,000. He hasn't quite been the same player that was red hot in the middle of the season, but he still shoots a fair bit. So, if you don't believe in Coronar, I think the Ducks are still going to come in at relatively low ownership. Not a lot of people play the Ducks because they don't score a lot. So, if you don't believe in Coronar, I think that there is merit to playing the Ducks tonight. I just don't like playing them because they're so boring, but they are so cheap. Henry just doesn't shoot enough for me. I do think Silverberg, obviously, playing 16 to 19 minutes a night at 3,700 is interesting. Maybe Silverberg as a one-off option is solid, but they just are so bad offensively. Obviously, they had a good night the other night, but it's been an outlier in comparison to the rest of their season. So, you mentioned really liking Connor tonight. Who else might be your top cash plays? So I mentioned Armia as well. I like Armia. Obviously, McKinnon's up there. Brady Tkachuk is just too reliable. His shot volume is the best in the league. I like Brady Tkachuk if you're not playing for SWA. Let me go to the 5v5 score here. So, yeah, I think you got to still look at Rudolph Balcers at 4,400. I think he's very reasonably priced there on that top line. He looks like a pretty good value option. McKinnon's obviously outstanding. I mentioned Tkachuk. I think Meyer and Hurdle are still solid because their shot volume it has been pretty consistent. You have VGK2 rated as number 2 line and Caps 2 rated as number 3 line overall. No. I don't think so. I think overall, adding Mantha to the mix is going to make Washington 2 better. But Vegas 2 is just too good. They're much better at 5v5. That Backstrom line's good, but they're not. And Vegas 2 is one of the best lines in hockey. Zaitsev, good D-man choice. Second power play D-man now. Brandstrom's probably going to be on the second power play unit. Brandstrom's probably the better option. I think the one thing that they want to do is get him more minutes. It still, didn't show up in the first game after the trade deadline. But if he starts playing more, Brandstrom at 3,000 looks really, really solid as value D. Speaking of value D, I still, Sean Walker's finally up 4,500. So, rest in peace to that play. But I still like Mario Ferraro. I play him all the time. He's still under 4,000. Sub 4,000 Mario Ferraro is always the play. I love Joel Edmondson at 3,700. He's just been rock steady. His price never goes up. I don't love the Blues tonight, but I do like Vince Dunn at 3,300. It's a really good price for him. Brandstrom, I just mentioned. Jamie Drysdale. Again, I think that you're probably going to see some goals go past Coronar tonight. Drysdale's been playing a ton. Super good offensive defenseman. He's played over 20 minutes, 3 games in a row. I like Drysdale a lot at 2,900. Even Josh Manson, he seems to block a lot of shots if you want to go there, but I would probably just play Drysdale over him. And I swear there was one more defenseman that I really liked. Where the hell did he go? It is Brady McNabb, 3,100. He's just been blocking a ton of shots. He plays a ton of minutes with Alex Pietrangelo. So I like him at 2,900 or 3,100 as well. So that is that. Nichushkin. Yeah, Nichushkin, he's great wherever he goes. 3,300. He's one guy you can kind of plug in because he's like, whichever line he's on is the one that really seems to generate a lot at 5v5. The problem is his floor is not great. If he plays on Colorado 2, Kadri is going to be the guy who gets the majority of the shots. On Colorado 3, it seems to be Donskoy and Yost more than anything. But we've seen big games out of Nichushkin, and at 3,300, he seems to be a pretty good value play as well. But I have to go pick up dinner, so I've got a jet. That's going to do it for today's DFS show. I am going to just bring up the goalies really, really quickly one more time. So right now we've got Phil Grubauer up top, which is obviously going to change. He is out. But so Laurent Brossoit, Fleury, and Jake Allen look like the best options on tonight's slate. So thank you guys so much for tuning into another DFS show. Please smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube on your way out. I will see you guys again back here tomorrow for Thursday's slate, same time, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully we all return with more money in our bankrolls tomorrow than we have today. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Thanks again, and smash the like button on your way out.